Do you have any idea who came up with the idea for the first automobile to have an internal combustion engine? We assume that's an easy question for all of you car and history buffs out there. And the right response is, without a doubt, Carl Benz. And you will be amazed that his wife Bertha became the first ever driver. How did it happen? Let's find out. Welcome back to Business Bang, you all. Have you ever imagined how a woman became our first ever driver? In today's episode, we will feature the life story of Bertha Benz. Bertha Benz was a pioneer and inventor in the field of automobiles in Germany. She was given the name Cecilia Bertha Ringer on the 3rd of May of 1849, and she passed away on May the 5th of 1944. Her name is pronounced when it's written out in German. She was not just Carl Benz's wife, but also his business partner, in addition to their marital status. It is generally agreed that he was the inventor of the very first car. During the time that she was out in the field testing the Benz patent motor wagon, she was able to achieve this, as well as invent brake lining and find solutions to several other issues that were of practical significance. She did all of this while she was working on the Benz patent motor wagon. This excursion covered a total distance of 65 miles. She did this, which finally resulted in the first sales for the company, which ultimately led to worldwide attention being paid to the patent motor wagon, which ultimately led to the first sales for the company. She is credited with being the first person to ever operate the patent motor wagon. If you enjoyed hearing about the Benz Queen, be sure to click the like button. Now getting back to the tale. Cecilia Bertha Ringer was born on May the 3rd of 1849 in the town of Pforzheim, which is located in the Grand Duchy of Baden. She was born into a rich family. 2 years before her marriage to Carl Benz, she put some of her dowry money into the iron construction company that he controlled, which was doing poorly at the time she invested. After she wed Benz, Bertha lost the legal capacity to operate as an investor, since under German law, that privilege was withdrawn from single women. However, she was able to do so while she was a single woman. Bertha Ringer and Carl Benz married on July 20th of 1872, and from that day forward, even after he had moved on to a new manufacturing company called Benz & C, he continued to use her dowry as a source of financial support. This was the case even though he was married. For a good number of years, he employed it in this manner. In December in the year 1885, Carl successfully finished the construction of his first carriage, which did not require the use of a horse to operate. Bertha was a field tester who made an important contribution to the development of Volkswagen. Her contributions included the installation of wire insulation and the construction of leather brake pads, both of which were intended to augment the functionality of the wooden brakes as they later began to lose their effectiveness. In addition to this, she was able to identify a lot of the important prospects, such as the design of the fuel line, which Carl would later improve. In addition to the contributions that she made to the machine's design, Bertha was also quite helpful in providing financial assistance for the research and development of the automobile that came to be known as the motor wagon. This assistance was incredibly important. But because she was a married woman at the time, she could not be listed as an inventor on the patent. By modern legal standards, she would be entitled to patent rights. This is because she was previously married to someone else. They had 5 children: Eugene, Richard, Clara, Thilda, and Ellen. They considered it a blessing to have so many children. Eugene died in 1958, while Richard died in 1955. The very first motor vehicle to ever receive a patent. On July the 3rd of 1886, Benz was the first person to show the public his car, which he called the patent motor wagon. This event took place in Mannheim. By the time the decade concluded, a total of 25 automobiles had been produced. Model 1 was the first iteration of the patent motor car and is considered to be the first ever manufactured automobile. It was built with some of the most cutting-edge bicycle technology available at the time. Because Variety 2 was modified into a 4-wheeler for testing, there is only one specimen of this variant. This is because the conversion was done for testing purposes. The Model 3 was the very first pay-in motor car that was made available for purchase in limited production runs and advertised to the general public as being up for grabs for purchase. In addition to that, it came with a front wheel that could be turned and was made of ringed steel and solid rubber. Even the rear wheels have motors attached to them. Customers had access to a wide selection of alternatives from which to select, including, to give just two examples, a top that could be folded down, and several different seating configurations. The initial crossing of the United States by car began in California and ended in New York. Bertha Benz, who was 39 years old at the time, made history on August 5th of 1888, when she became the first person to drive an automobile for a significant distance. Without alerting her husband or receiving a permission from the authorities, she took her two children, Richard and Eugene, who were 13 and 15 years old respectively, and drove from Mannheim to Pforzheim in a Model 3. Of the two sons, Richard was the elder of the two. As a direct consequence of her achievement, she holds the distinction of being the first person to travel a considerable distance while operating a motor vehicle. Before this important excursion, motorized drives consisted of little more than very brief tests that were carried out with the assistance of mechanics and were then followed by a return back to the spot where they had begun. This adventurous journey progressed along wagon tracks and was approximately 66 miles in length when traveling in just one direction. Although Bertha Benz intended to pay a visit to her mother, she did so for two additional reasons. First, to demonstrate to her husband, who had failed to adequately consider marketing his invention, that the automobile, in which they had both heavily invested, would become a financial success once it was shown to be useful to the general public. And second, to give her husband the confidence that his constructions had a future. Bertha Benz's mother was ill at the time. Both Bertha Benz's mother and father resided in Germany during their lifetimes. She departed Mannheim just before dawn and was able to find solutions to several issues while she was on the road. Bertha was able to show that she possesses a significant degree of technological talent throughout her trips. She needed to find some Legroin, which is a petroleum solvent, so that the vehicle would run. Because it did not have a fuel tank and the carburetor could only hold 4.5 liters of gasoline. For the vehicle to function, she needed to have the Legroin. Additionally, to get the vehicle insured, she had to track down some Legroin. Because the fuel could only be purchased at apothecary stores, she made her way to the pharmacy in Wiesloch, which was the only place in the city that sold the solvent. This was because fuel was the only thing that could be purchased there, because at the time, chemists were the only sort of businesses that sold gasoline and other types of fuel. The chemist in Wiesloch ended up becoming the first gas station in the world. If you are enjoying this video, we would appreciate it if you could give it a thumbs up, share it with your friends, and subscribe to our channel. Then she removed the blockage in the gasoline line by using her hat pin, and she insulated a pipe by wrapping her garter around it. In total, she utilized 3 of her accessories to remedy the situation at hand. At one point in time, a chain required maintenance, and to complete the task, the assistance of a blacksmith was essential. Benz noticed that the wooden brakes were losing their capacity to successfully stop the vehicle, so he took the vehicle to a cobbler so that leather brake linings could be installed. These brake linings were the very first ones that were ever produced for any type of brakes. Because of the employment of an evaporative cooling system to keep the engine at a constant temperature, there was a significant problem throughout the journey about the availability of water. Because of this, there was difficulty because there was nowhere to keep the water. At every rest station that they went through, they would top off their water supply with fresh water. They were a group of 3 in all. Because the car only had 2 speeds, Eugene and Richard frequently needed to push the vehicle up steep roads because the gears were insufficient. Benz informed her husband through a message that she had arrived in Pforzheim without incident, close to the time when twilight was beginning to fall, and she had completed her journey. Benz's arrival in Pforzheim marked the successful completion of her voyage. After a brief amount of time had passed, she got back into her vehicle and drove the entire distance back to Mannheim. she was able to garner the attention that she had been looking for as a direct result of the exposure that was produced by the incredible adventure that she had taken. The drive was an important step in the process of determining the technological capabilities of the automobile, and it was one of the stages that took place. After Bertha went through everything that she did, the two folks who planned forward made a variety of tweaks and improvements. She provided a comprehensive account of everything that had taken place throughout the trip and made several astute recommendations, such as the inclusion of extra gear for climbing steep slopes and brake linings to boost the vehicle's stopping ability. In addition to this, she suggested that a GPS be installed in the automobile as a safety precaution. Her excursion made it very clear to the nascent automotive industry that test drives were a necessary component of their line of work, and the industry adjusted itself accordingly. The administrative offices of the Daimler and Benz Foundation are currently located on the property in Ladenburg, Baden-Württemberg, that formerly served as the house of Karl and Bertha Benz. Benz died in 1944 in her villa in Ladenburg, which was also the location of the workshop that Karl Benz had erected after the family had moved there in 1906, and he had formed Benz & Sons as a family-owned and operated business. Karl Benz had originally envisioned Benz & Sons to be a family-run enterprise ever since it was founded. Because Karl Benz had already passed away in 1929, when it became clear that Daimler-Benz would be successful, he was unable to see the company's accomplishments and was therefore unable to take credit for them. Following the occurrence of that event, members of the family persisted in making the residence their primary residence over the subsequent quarter of a century. The Daimler and Benz Foundation is a not-for-profit organization that seeks to fund science and research to achieve the goal of getting a greater understanding of the interaction that exists between man, the environment, and technology. The historical significance of the Benz mansion has been recognized, and the foundation is currently employing it as a location for scientific symposia as part of its operations. The following is the title of the next section that Karl Benz included in his memoirs, which were published in 1925. When it appeared that a catastrophe was going to take my life, the only other person to accompany on the lifeboat was this one other person. We were both clinging to hope that we would survive the ordeal. Over there is a picture of my wife, which you can see over there. She achieved this in a manner that was daring and determined, in the process hoisting the fresh sails of optimism. There is a plaque in Wiesloch that honors Bertha Benz. Wiesloch is a location of the municipal pharmacy that is recognized today as the first filling station in the world. The memorial is situated in the same location as before. There, Bertha Benz decided to stop over to get some petrol. The Bertha Benz Memorial Route was formally designated as a route of the industrial legacy of humankind in the year 2008. And this was because it follows the route that Bertha Benz followed when she made the world's first long-distance journey by automobile in 1888. It is now possible to follow the 194 kilometers of markers that show her route from Heidelberg via Mannheim to Pforzheim in the Black Forest and back again, with the voyage beginning and ending in Heidelberg each time. A competition known as the Bertha Benz Challenge took place on the Bertha Benz Memorial Route on September 10th and 11th of 2011. The Bertha Benz Memorial Route was the setting for this particular event. This event was part of the Vehicle Summer 2011 ceremony, which was a big official event and birthday party conducted in Germany to celebrate the creation of the vehicle by Karl Benz more than 134 years ago. This year's Automobile Summer 2011 took place in Germany as the event's host country. It was a signal of international prominence for innovative automotive advances, and it was open only to environmentally responsible modes of transportation. This was a word that was used to refer to automobiles that were geared toward the future and had alternative drive systems, such as hybrid and electric, hydrogen, and fuel cell vehicles, along with other autos that were incredibly affordable. The rallying cry for this competition is Bertha Benz Challenge, Sustainable Mobility on the world's oldest automobile road. On January 25th of 2011, Deutsche Welle presented a documentary about Karl Benz's development of the automobile as part of the series Made in Germany. The documentary centered on the significant role that Karl Benz's wife Bertha Benz played in the process of designing the car and the importance that she played in that role. In addition to discussing the background of the vehicle, this piece examines its potential applications in the years to come, notably the Bertha Benz Challenge, which took place throughout the weekend of September 10th and 11th of 2011. The journey that Bertha Benz did on her maiden road trip was the subject of a documentary that Uli Kampelman produced entitled The Car is Born. Bertha Benz's journey was the focal point of the film. The documentary focused on this experience as its primary subject. The lives of Carl and Bertha Benz were the inspiration for a documentary that was produced for television in 2011 and given the title Carl and Bertha. The United States of America served as the setting for the film's production. The film was shown for the first time in the world on May 11th, and Das Öste began airing it on May 23rd. Both the making of special for the film and the trailer for the film have been uploaded to YouTube at this time. The current Daimler Corporation has commissioned the production of a commercial that is 4 minutes long and reenacts aspects of Bertha Benz's voyage that took place to mark International Women's Day in the year 2019. The advertisement's directing duties were handled by Sebastian Strasser, who is also the proprietor of the production business Anorak Film. The advertising firm Antoni, which has its headquarters in Berlin and is the Mercedes-Benz brand's primary agency in Europe, is responsible for the creation of the ad in question. Sebastian Strasser is the owner of Anorak Film and also runs the business. That's all for today's video. If you enjoyed the video, please hit that like button, and you can share your thoughts on the comment section down below. And yes, do not forget to do the most important task, which is to subscribe to our channel for more amazing content like this.